learning English can seem like a gigantic challenge for many adults. However, we can simplify this process by observing how children learn new languages so naturally and intuitively. What if we could adopt the same methods to learn English easily and effectively? In this video, we will explore how anyone can practice English daily and become fluent in a short time by following the natural stages of children's learning. These tips and tricks will revolutionize your way of learning English, making the process more fun and intuitive. Children learn languages in a very natural and intuitive way. From their earliest years, they are constantly exposed to language through interactions with parents, family members, and their surroundings. This continuous immersion process allows them to absorb the language almost unconsciously, which facilitates fluency over time. One of the main reasons children learn languages easily is the lack of pressure and the playful way they engage with language. They are not afraid of making mistakes and see learning as a game, which makes the process much more enjoyable and effective. Another important factor is the constant repetition of words and phrases they hear daily. For example, hearing their parents say good morning every morning, they quickly associate this expression with the morning greeting. This repetition helps solidify the vocabulary in their minds. Additionally, children have an incredible ability to imitate sounds and intonations. They carefully observe how people around them speak and try to reproduce these sounds, even if initially imperfectly. Over time and with practice, they refine their speaking skills and begin to communicate more clearly and effectively. In their early years, children are in an environment rich in linguistic stimuli. From babies, they are exposed to constant conversations, lullabies, stories told by parents, and interactions with objects and toys that emit sounds and words. All this context contributes to building a vast linguistic repertoire that, little by little, becomes consolidated. Imitation is a powerful tool in childhood learning. Children closely observe adults around them and try to imitate their sounds and facial expressions. This imitation phase is crucial as it helps the child internalize the different sounds of the language, and practice leads to perfection. Even if the first sounds are just babbling, they already represent a significant effort in the right direction. Moreover, interaction with other children and adults also plays a fundamental role. Circle games, make-believe games, and group activities encourage communication and word exchange. Every interaction is an opportunity for the child to practice and expand their vocabulary and learn new ways of expression and sentence construction. Another essential aspect is the natural curiosity of children. They are constantly exploring and asking questions about the world around them. This curiosity drives learning, as they are always attentive and ready to absorb new information. When a child asks, "What is this?" or "Why?" they are demonstrating an inherent desire to learn and understand what surrounds them. The patience and encouragement of adults are also indispensable. When children try to speak and make mistakes, the reaction of parents and caregivers is crucial. Correcting gently and encouragingly, without discouraging or reprimanding, helps the child feel confident and motivated to keep trying. Now that we understand how children learn languages so effectively, let's understand how we can adopt these natural techniques in our own English learning process. The natural order of learning is quite simple. Initially, It is necessary to start understanding the sounds and words heard in the surrounding environment. This phase of passive vocabulary absorption occurs only through listening and observation, without the immediate need to speak or understand grammar. In the next stage, we need to start speaking, imitating the sounds and words we hear repeatedly. What may sound a bit strange at first quickly transforms into real words and simple phrases. In this phase, fluency in English begins to emerge naturally, without worrying about grammatical correctness. Only after understanding and starting to speak will we learn grammar in a structured way. Assimilating the rules of conjugation, sentence formation, and other grammatical aspects is necessary, but this only happens after we have mastered basic communication. For adults, adopting this natural order of learning can be extremely beneficial. Instead of focusing primarily on grammar, it is important to be exposed to English daily by listening to conversations, music, podcasts, and watching videos in English. This immersion facilitates the absorption of vocabulary and helps practice the language more organically. In this way, you will take much less time to become fluent in English. On the other hand, methodologies that emphasize grammar from the beginning can hinder and delay learning. Focusing too much on grammatical rules can create a mental barrier, making the student feel insecure about speaking and prone to making mistakes, affecting their confidence. Furthermore, this approach can make the learning process more tiring and less motivating, as practical communication is left aside. Therefore, following a more natural approach that prioritizes listening comprehension and speaking practice before delving into grammar can be much more effective for learning English easily and fluently. Children are true linguistic sponges. In the first phase of learning, they spend a lot of time just listening and observing the world around them. Every sound, word, and phrase they hear is absorbed and stored in their minds, like a large vocabulary database. This listening period is crucial, as it allows children to become familiar with the intonation, rhythm, and pronunciation of the new language, without the pressure of needing to speak immediately. When they finally start speaking, children use this vast auditory repertoire they have accumulated. They begin to form simple words and phrases, often mixing the languages they already know. This process of trial and error is fundamental for developing fluency, as it allows children to experiment with the language in a safe and non-judgmental way. Speaking practice is intensified through constant interaction with adults and other children. Verbal communication is encouraged in all daily activities, from asking for food to playing and telling stories. This environment rich in verbal stimuli offers countless opportunities to practice and refine linguistic skills. Only after mastering basic communication do children start learning grammar more formally. They learn to conjugate verbs, form correct sentences, and use pronouns and prepositions appropriately. However, since they are already comfortable expressing themselves, learning grammar becomes easier and more intuitive. Now that we understand the natural order of learning, let's explore the differences between children and adults in the English learning process and how we can adapt these techniques for our own studies. Adults generally face more challenges when learning English compared to children. This happens for several reasons, including the pressure to learn quickly, the fear of making mistakes, and the lack of time to dedicate to learning. One of the biggest difficulties for adults is the tendency to focus too much on grammar from the beginning. Unlike children, who learn intuitively, adults often try to understand all the grammatical rules before feeling comfortable speaking. This can make the learning process slower and more frustrating. Additionally, many adults have the habit of translating words individually instead of focusing on understanding the context of what is being said. This approach can hinder fluency, as word-for-word translation often does not capture the complete or natural meaning of a sentence. Children, on the other hand, learn from context and situations, which makes learning more effective and less reliant on literal translations. Focusing excessively on grammatical rules creates a mental barrier, making the student feel insecure about speaking and afraid of making mistakes, affecting their confidence. This approach can also make learning more tiring and less motivating, as practical communication is left aside. Another factor that makes learning difficult for adults is the lack of daily practice. Children are constantly immersed in the language through daily interactions, while adults often have to find time between other responsibilities to practice English. However, with daily practice, adults can significantly improve their language skills. Adults can also benefit from learning English online, where there are numerous tools and resources available. Taking advantage of these resources can make learning more accessible and convenient, allowing adults to practice at their own pace. An effective way to overcome these challenges is to adopt a more playful and less formal approach, similar to the way children learn. Watching videos in English, listening to podcasts, and interacting with native speakers are some strategies that can help make learning more enjoyable and less intimidating. Now that we understand the differences between children and adults in learning English, let's explore some practical strategies to learn English easily. These tips are inspired by the natural techniques children use and can be adapted for adults. Immersion in the language. Immersion is one of the most effective ways to learn English. Surrounding yourself with the language, whether through music, movies, series, podcasts, or conversations with native speakers, helps absorb vocabulary and sentence structures naturally. Watch educational videos and take advantage of interactive content that offers explanations and practical exercises. Daily practice. Consistency is key. Dedicating a few minutes every day to practicing English can make a significant difference. Use learning apps, read online articles, listen to an audiobook in English during your commute to work or school, and try to incorporate English into your daily activities. Constant practice helps reinforce knowledge and improve fluency. Learning with stories. Stories are a powerful tool for learning English. They provide context for vocabulary and grammatical structures, making learning more engaging. Channels like Storybook English offer stories in English that help learn new words and expressions naturally. Interaction with native speakers. Interacting with native speakers is an excellent way to practice English. Look for language exchange groups, join online communities, or make friends who speak English. Conversational practice helps improve pronunciation and confidence when speaking. Nowadays, there are several AI apps that assist with conversation practice, focusing on context, not translation. Instead of translating each word, focus on understanding the context of what is being said. This helps you think directly in English facilitating fluency. Use visual resources like videos and images to associate words and phrases with concrete situations, making learning more intuitive. As mentioned before, daily practice plays a crucial role in learning English. Integrating the language into your daily activities is an effective way to ensure constant contact with the language, facilitating familiarity with new words, correct pronunciation, and grammatical structures. Imagine waking up and listening to an English podcast while getting ready for the day. During your commute to work or school, you can listen to music or audiobooks in English. At night, watching educational videos or series in English before bed becomes part of your routine. Some people even choose to listen to stories in English while they sleep, allowing the brain to continue absorbing the language subconsciously. This continuous exposure to English makes learning more organic and less forced. Traveling is also a powerful motivation for learning English. When planning a trip, you encounter various situations where English is necessary, checking into hotels, asking for information, exploring tourist spots, and communicating with locals. Each interaction during the trip becomes an opportunity to practice the language. In your adventures, you can practice English by ordering a coffee, asking for directions, or talking to people about the local culture. These experiences enrich the learning process, making it more dynamic and enjoyable. Combining daily practice with the motivation to use English while traveling brings you closer to fluency. Constant contact with the language in real contexts makes the learning process more effective and rewarding. So, we can conclude that there is much to learn from how children acquire new languages. The simplicity and naturalness with which they listen, repeat, and finally understand grammatical structures offer an efficient model that we can adopt. The key is to expose ourselves to the language regularly, listen a lot, speak without fear of making mistakes, and leave grammar for later. For adults, this means integrating English into daily life in practical and enjoyable ways. Listening to podcasts on the way to work, watching educational videos, and even listening to stories in English before bed are ways to make learning continuous and less forced. Traveling can also be a great incentive, turning each interaction into an opportunity to practice and learn. Online resources, such as language apps, and YouTube channels like Storybook English, offer flexibility and interactivity, making the learning process more accessible and adaptable to our routines. The conclusion is simple. By using what we learn from children and adapting these techniques to our reality, we can learn English easily and efficiently, and the same applies to any other language. Daily practice, constant immersion, and the use of modern tools are essential to achieving fluency. There is no single path to learning English, but a combination of strategies that can be adapted to your needs and preferences. Every small action counts, and every effort is a step towards fluency. The important thing is to maintain consistency, motivation, and curiosity, exploring all the possibilities that learning a new language can offer. Finally, by integrating these practices into your routine and maintaining a positive and open attitude towards learning, you will be on the right path to becoming fluent in English. Continue exploring, practicing, and enjoying the process, and in no time, you will see significant results. Before you know it, you will be speaking English fluently. To continue learning and practicing English, Be sure to watch our other videos and take advantage of all the available tips and resources. Remember, constant practice is the key to success.